We're glad that Mr. Robertson from the Vice President's office thinks that we have proved our point. It's to us when we know we've proved our point. Well, we've proved the point that Mr. Robertson would like to have proved, but about the things that are going on about Indian peoples socially and economically being below par compared to the rest of the population. But we've got a bigger point than that. We're saying, we're talking about law. We're talking about respect as a people. Respecting a people as a people. We're talking about more than poverty. We're talking about honor. We're saying you've never dealt with us honorably, United States, ever, and it's time that you start doing so, because we're not going to allow it to continue. We can't.
Mr. Robertson's point was that all the problems for the Indian people, such as you just mentioned, are in the cities on the mainland, and therefore you were not helping these problems by staying out on the island. Do you agree with that?
No. Problems for the Indian people are within the United States government. Problems that we're having is the Nisqually fishing battle at Frank's Landing in Washington, where the treaty is being broken. The federal government is allowing the state government to break a treaty that was signed between the Indians and the Indian people and the federal government, and that treaty is a law. We're talking about things like this. We're talking about that if we're free, we want the right to make our own decisions. We don't want the great white father image anymore looking down on us, making the decision for us. And this, Mr. Robertson or President Nixon came out with this proposal that he gave to Congress, the 9-step plan, and he talks in there about ending paternalism. He created that. He didn't end any paternalism with that bill.
Well, Mr. Trudell, President Nixon says that he feels particularly close to Indians because his football coach, who was also his first campaign manager, is an Indian. Do you think he is particularly close to the Indians?
I think Mr. Nixon's probably particularly close to Mr. Nixon. And we're concerned about people, the reservation people, the people on the reservations that are being forced to assimilate or die out. We're worried about things like our language and our culture. And we want this on our own terms. We don't want to be able to hang on to it because the federal government says we can keep this much and we can keep that much. It's part of us, and we want it all. It's what we're accomplishing by here is Alcatraz never sold out. The government offered us money for the island, which went through these current negotiations starting April the 13th. They offered us money, and we told them no. They offered us a lease. We told them no. We said we want to talk about when you're going to turn the deed over to us. The significant thing that's been accomplished by Alcatraz is whether we want the physical part of the island or not. We never sold ourselves out. We never compromised. We went for the whole cup of cake. And if we don't get it, well, we're bringing people to our side. Because a lot of Indians aren't going to like this.
Is it true, John, that...
Defeat? Nah, man, there is no such thing as defeat. You know, when they start kicking you around, you know, you just got to learn to bandage up the bruises, see? So you can stand up again. They didn't beat us. So here's the deal is, like, I think the one important thing that comes out of this is that the government gave us their word through their negotiators that nothing would happen. And they came out there and they took our people off the island. And all this is going to narrow down for our own Indian people. This is going to benefit Indian people throughout the country, because here's the thing, is like, Indians know whose side the government's on. The government don't lie to you and then go out there and do something against you.
Did the Indians have any doubt as to who was on their side before this?
Well, we have, see, like, all right, every day you got to do a little something to get little people on your side. Now, we've got Indian people that know they've got their questions or dislikes against the government, but when they see the government come out and commit actions like this against us, the government is talking about honor in Vietnam, and it comes out here and lies to Indians just because we're Indians. That don't mean they lie to us.
Kind of had to find us a new place to live, so we figured this would be as good a spot as any. It's a military base. Belongs to the federal government, they say. They're not using it. We could use it. We need it, so we're here. We're pretty, to put it mildly, we're pretty upset about the way the government handled the Alcatraz situation.
Do you expect that people will come here and will live and attempt to make it a community, or is it a gesture of defiance of the government?
I think they're both the same. It seems like when you get Indian people together now and we just want to live, that's defying to the government already. They can't understand that. See, what we want is, like, really, it just boils down to basically we want to be left alone. We want to be left alone, but we want the right to guide our own lives. You know, we don't believe in the Great White Father. We think that it's a myth. The dude's dead. You know, he never existed. If you don't agree with the federal government's chain of thought, or if you don't agree with what they tell you should agree with, and they react against it. They react against it very harshly. You know, this is the way they bring in all these armed people to Alcatraz, and they knew we were unarmed out there. They did it at People's Park or Isla Vista. Or when people stand up for their rights, they have a tendency to react, you know, to show you their strength. And when they show you their strength, they're always showing you how many guns they've got, you know. Put it this way, if criminals are supposed to be in jail, you guys can take that for what it's worth. Whoever put the names there meant it. You know, there's more than one kind of criminal, more than a street criminal. You know, street criminal just reacts to what the other criminals create for him.
Because of some trouble over some copper wire, they had an excuse to get you off Alcatraz. What kind of excuse will they have to move you from here?
I don't know. I don't think they'll have any excuses to move us from here. And as far as their copper wire excuse that we were stealing, you know, that's a whole long story. Number one is that they knew that we were taking the copper from the island. They've known that for over a year. You know, now how come all of a sudden they're all panicky about it? And the vandalism that we did to the island, you know, supposedly did, that they're charging us with. Well, you know, let's think back about 400 years. When the Europeans came over here, they came over here and they discovered this main body of land here. And in the process of discovering, they tapped the land and they took the natural resources for their own use. They committed vandalist acts against the land because look at the environment. That's vandalism. So on Alcatraz, we've done the same thing. Basically, we did it on a smaller scale. I guess we tapped the natural resources, which happened to be copper. That was that island's natural resources for the time. We discovered the island. We were claiming it for our own, so we took it for our own use. You know, so if we're crooks for stealing that copper, then who's crooks for stealing this over here? You know, it just so if they're going to go like that, we're both crooks. But to what degree? Who's the biggest crook of all?
How do you think everybody's feeling about the temporariness of their situation? Is that bothering people? Does it bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me, and I don't think it bothers anyone else. Alcatraz was 19 months of temporariness. You know, we're used to it. It's, I think in a way, Indian lives now, the whole Indian way of life has been built on temporariness. Boarding school system, you're temporarily there, you're temporarily at home, you're temporarily in a joint, you're temporarily on the street, you're always temporarily somewhere and permanently nowhere ever, permanently just having to hassle, you know. The only thing we have that's permanent is our reservation land, but we're always in a temporary situation on our own land, so, you know, it's nothing new.
So being so disorganized with no furniture isn't putting anybody uptight?
Oh, no. You know, like last night at midnight, the place was completely quiet. People were used to it, man. We come in yesterday morning at 4 o'clock. By 8 o'clock last night, everyone had houses and just drifted right into living, you know. You live like that, you know. You live when you can, but it's no big hassle. It's nothing that exciting, you know. Just for us, it's just a way of life, just doing it.
You're not getting tired? It's been a long year for you.
No, it's start to get tired, and then the government comes out there and they get cute, and then that just kind of takes the tiredness and just washes it away, you know, because the government's there and they do what they do, so there isn't enough time to really get tired. It's something to keep you going, you know. It's better. I think we would be more tired if we just had to lay around and not be able to do nothing at all, you know.
Ron, if you had your choice of what the outcome, what would be your most pleasurable outcome?
Get an honorable government. That would be it. Because when you got an honorable government, then you don't have to worry about these other hassles. You know, honorable people will sit down and talk and try and work out a solution. But, sure, government people out there now. What do you expect?
Before they came, like 400 years of prison was pretty heavy.
Sure it was. You know, it's 400 years of prison, like the island's always been misused. You know, the only time that island's had any liberation is when we were out there, you know. Besides what all this propaganda that the government is running down about how filthy we were and what kind of vandals we were, you know. We had that island liberated. People were free to move around out there, and all of a sudden even reporters sensed that when they went out there. They never talked about bad vibes. Fact exists that we held Alcatraz for 19 months against the United States government. And we did it on our own. We did it our own way. We were never co-opted. They tried to offer us money. We said, we don't want your money. They tried to offer us a lease. We said, we don't want your leases. We want this for our own, for us to build it and either make it last or fall. But we want it to do it on our own. We already know that we're equal.
I mean, we're equal as human beings, so we're not fighting for equality. What we're fighting for is we want economic opportunity. We want the right to control our own economic base, you know, and we want the right to control our lives. It was worth it in the sense here of, like, there are more Indians now that have gotten out of being apathetic. And they did that because of things like Alcatraz. Alcatraz happened. After Alcatraz happened, Fort Lawton happened. The Black Hills movement happened. It's happening on the East Coast. There's a revival of building Indian pride. I'm proud of being Indian, and I'm going to stand up to the United States government to prove it.